Hello everyone, we are broadcasting live from Brescia. This is in the northern part of Italy, just a few miles away from Milan, and where we are is a little bit of a special place. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. We are in Brixia. This is the ancient name of Brescia, and down here where we are filming now, what you see behind me is the remainings of an ancient Republican sanctuary. Up above, where our guys are preparing the live stream, you will see the Capitolium. This is the remainings of an ancient Capitol hill that was built by Emperor Vespasian to celebrate his victory and when he became an emperor. Up there, there's between here and up there, there's about 100 years of history. Between up there and us, there's about 2,000 years of history. What better place to introduce you to the new game by Ageod. Ageod has been trying hard over 12, 15 years of history to create games that are both historically accurate and fun to play. And here in Brescia, we are introducing you to the next generation of Ageod games. Before we go to the live stream though, we would like you to take a few moments to enjoy a little bit of a quiz around ancient Roman history, and then we will be back to the interviews with Philippe Malachet, aka Pocus, who is going to explain what Ageod has been doing over the last 15 years and what it will do in the next 15 years. Thank you for watching.
Ageod is a French company founded in 2004. In fact, Philippe Thibault is the maker of the board game Europa Universalis, which was used by Paradox, a Swedish company, some years later to make a PC game. Since the beginning, our main mission was to design fun and engaging games which were not just about slapping a veneer of historicity on any gameplay mechanism. As such, we dissect and analyze conflicts and try to come up with game rules and mechanisms which are fun and engaging to play. Our first game was Birth of America. Player told us it was both fun and historically accurate. Then a few years later, we did American Civil War. It was a very big success, and some American schools did use it as their historical program for a few years. Then we did a game on Napoleon, and others game, like a game on the Great War. And over 10 years we did probably 10 or 12 games on even some minor conflict like the 30 Years' War. Then we did Pride of Nation. It was a very complex project and it pushed the limit of our engine to the maximum. Still, it was very fun to play. It covered the whole of Victorian era from 1850 to 1920. In 2012, we joined the Citizen family. We kept releasing games with the existing engine because there was so much to do. In parallel to that, we started working with the in-house Archon engine, a very powerful and strategic-centric engine. It's a great foundation for our game system because it allows us to focus 100% on gameplay experience. In parallel with that, we started working on a game in the Archon engine. It's a very powerful strategic-centric engine Citizen developed. Because of it, we are able to design and focus 100% on a good and great gameplay experience. Hopefully you will see the incredible leap we are taking, while remaining true to our first and core mission, which is to provide historically accurate games that are still fun and engaging to play.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Capitolium in Brixia. We're here today to announce Empire, the brand new strategy game from Ageod. My name's Ian McNeil, and I'm here with Philippe Malachet from Ageod to tell you a bit about the game.
Hi guys, I am Philippe Malachet, and I am also known as Pocus on the forum at Matrix, Ageod and Slytherin.
So if you've been watching the pre-stream, you'll have seen a bit of information about Ageod, about the past and their history and how they've been making grand strategy games for many years. And there's also been quite a bit of information about the location. We're in this awesome location. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we're really lucky to be here today broadcasting live from inside the museum with all these artifacts around us. It's a really great location. So without further ado, what we'd like to do is give you a look at the trailer. Welcome back, guys. Hope you enjoyed the trailer. So we are here today to talk about Empires, the brand new grand strategy game from AGOD. We're going to go through a few of the key design concepts and ideas that help to drive development. After that, we're going to show you a bit of the game. Tamas, just off to the left, is driving, and we have a screen here where we can see what he's showing you guys. So we'll just be looking at that to keep up to speed on what's happening. And first thing to say is a little bit about the core design. So we think this is a really ambitious game. We've really tried to push the boundaries. We've got lots of new and interesting concepts combined in unusual ways, and we're not playing it safe at all. We've got an AGOD game. We're trying to capture the feel of AGOD, but we're trying to give it a modern twist and hope it reaches out to a new generation of strategy gamers. So, Pocus, can you tell us a bit about the setting?
Yes, so the year is 310 BC, and Alexander the Great died some 13 years ago, and now 5 of the most powerful generals are fighting each other in the east. To the west you get Rome, which is still a regional power, still fighting for the supremacy in the Italian peninsula, and further south you get Carthage, which is in a dire and difficult war with Syracuse.
So this is a really interesting period for a grand strategy game. There are no dominant powers. Any of these nations could really rise to dominance, and so it's a great setting for a grand strategy game.
Yes, and as the map is rather big, you get 60 playable nations and hundreds of non-playable ones, like minor tribes, small kingdom, city-states. And although you can win with a military conquest, you are not forced to do that, and you don't have to paint the map in your color if you don't want. There are several paths to victory.
So one of those new concepts that is linked to that extra path to victory is legacy points. So these are the way you win the game. The way it works is that it's a measure of how much your legacy your empire has left. So if a barbarian nation, for example, sweeps across, captures some victory locations, it'll earn some legacy points for that, but it won't earn as many victory points as a really strong culture such as the Roman Empire spreading out. It's to capture the idea of concepts like Romanization. So as the Roman Empire captured new territory, it would bring its culture and its customs and laws to that area and Romanize those territories. And legacy points are a measure of how that works. So the stronger your culture, the more of an impression you leave for the generations to come. And linked to that are a couple of new concepts called culture and decadence. So culture is something that's been seen before in games, and everyone understands the basic idea, but decadence is kind of another side to that. Decadence is how overindulgent and how much reliance your nation has come to put on luxuries. And as your nation develops, there'll become more and more of a demand for these luxuries, and you'll have to deal with them. We'll go into more detail about that later. There's also concepts of ethnicity for your population. So you'll start with maybe Roman citizens in your country, but as you capture maybe a Celtic area, you'll have some Celtic slaves or Celtic citizens. And over time, the longer you can control those regions, they will start to become Romanized again. So they'll start to move towards your culture, and that helps to keep your country more cohesive. So those are some really important mechanics to the game.
Yes, and in addition to population, you also have buildings, which are very important to the game also. We have nearly 300 buildings. Many are custom to specific nations. So, for example, Carthage will have a trade settlement, or Rome will have a special legion camp and a particular one, which is the Campus Martius. So you get a really big diversity of buildings, and you can do a lot with them. Also, we spoke of buildings. The combat system is really detailed, so you can win with several paths to victory, and the combat system is a part of it.
Because the game covers growing from a fairly small nation up to some large empires, we've introduced some really interesting mechanics for how to deal with that, to do with some to do with user interface to make it easier to manage large empires, AI help, and also province system, which we'll talk about more later. If you're just joining us, welcome. We are here today to talk about Empires, the brand new grand strategy game from AGOD, and we're in this awesome location, the Brixia Capitolium, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we're right in amongst all of the museum exhibits. What we're going to do now is go into the game. Tamas is going to drive for us, and he's going to show a bit of the game off. After that, we're going to go to a Q&A session. So what we would like you guys to do is, if you've got any questions, anything you'd like to ask, please do ask them in the stream, and the team will try and answer in the chat, but they'll also try and get some questions for us to answer at the end of the stream. So do go ahead and ask your questions. So what we're going to do now is switch to the game. So hopefully, yeah, we now got the game up on screen. So this is your first look at the game. So the first thing I just wanted to mention is that this is a beta version of the game. Well, not quite beta, we're going to be going into beta very soon, so everything here is subject to change. There could be bugs, there could be mistakes, it might crash, we'll see what happens, it's a live stream, you never know. So I just wanted to get our excuses in early before we get too far. I've also been told that if the stream gets too boring, my children are going to heckle me from the chat, so we'll try to keep it interesting. And Daniel, Katie and Elena, please be nice to me. So the first thing we wanted to do was explore the map a little bit. So Tamas, if we come down to the south, you can see the map stretches down to Carthage and Africa, and then coming across it goes up through France, we've got into Britain, into Scotland, you have the German tribes coming through there and down into Greece with the Greek city-states and Macedonia, across through into the Persia, and then through to the India area, and all the Alexander's successor states, the Diadochi states. So it's a massive map, as Poker said, 1,000 regions, 60 playable nations. So Tamas, let's zoom back into our starting location. So we're the red area, obviously, for the Romans. We start with 3 regions. We have Campania, we have Tiberias, and we have Latium, where our capital, Rome, is located. So that's our starting nation, not too big. We haven't taken dominance of the Italian peninsula yet. Looking around us, to the west we have the Etruscans, the Yellow Nation. These are at peace with us currently. And then off to the east in the hills there you have the Samnites, they're a hill tribe nation. And further east we have Tarentum, which is a Greek city-state, which is occupying the end of the peninsula. And these guys are all at peace with us, so they're nothing too much to worry about. If you'll notice, there's a green nation there, the Senones. This is a Celtic nation. We are currently at war with these guys, so these are going to be our immediate problem, and we have to deal with them. Across the sea, Poker's already mentioned that Carthage is at war with Syracuse, and they're fighting over Sicily. So they should keep each other busy for now, and we shouldn't have to worry too much about them. So we should be able to focus all our efforts on the Senones. So that's the starting situation. Poker, can you give us a bit of information about how regions work?
Yes, so region, can you please? Perfect, Thomas. So the region panel, as you see, is split into 3 parts. To the left, you get the buildings of the region. As you can guess, you start with several buildings and you can build several more. You have also the central part, which is about the population. So the population can be drag and drop between 4 different jobs. And the right part is made of output of the region, and we have 4 main resources plus 3 extra one. So the 4 main resources are produced by the population. You have first the food, which is used to feed the population and grow new population and sustain the army. We have infrastructures, which is used to build new buildings and maintain the current one. We also have money. Money is used for the national decision and to buy new unit and pay the upkeep of the current unit. And then we have culture. Culture, as you can guess, produce culture points, and culture points are used to boost up loyalty and fight off decadence. It's not a given for, so Ian will talk a bit more about loyalty.
So yes, one of the concepts we wanted to get across was the idea of loyalty and culture and decadence and how they all interlink. So what you'll find is that as a young small nation, it's easy to keep the population happy. They're quite loyal to you. But as your nation grows and as it ages, it'll get harder and harder to keep that population happy. And you'll have to start giving them luxuries. And these luxuries will boost their loyalty and make it easier to keep them happy and avoid revolts and civil wars. But it has the downside of these luxuries, such as building a Colosseum. It creates decadence, and this decadence is a measure of how overindulgent your nation has become, and this decadence can lead to the decay and the regression of your empire into a weaker state. And so through the game you have this conflict between the culture and the development and the decadence, and you get a feeling of rise and fall of empire in different states happening, and it really does capture the ebb and flow of empires from that period of time. So that gives an idea of how they work. We'll go into more detail on those later. What we're going to look at next are the buildings. If you're just joining us today, we are here to talk about Empires, the brand new grand strategy game from Agiod, and we're here at the UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Brixia Capitolium, and we're really lucky to be here. So Pokers, over to you on buildings.
Yes, so buildings are very important because they are instrumental into your victory or defeat, as they can provide a wide variety of benefits. So for example, we have also many custom buildings, like Thomas is showing the Campus Martius. It's a special legion camp for Rome. We have many extra specific buildings for the Hellenistic nation, for the Seleucid Empire, for Egypt, for Carthage. And these buildings provide a wide variety of benefits. For example, at the most basic level, they can produce more resource, they can produce an extra unit, they can fight off decadence, they can help you on converting the population to your main ethnicity. And also we have a special system for the buildings. You don't get the exact choices of what buildings are available to your region at a given time. As Tamas is showing, you get one proposal per category. We have 6 categories: agriculture, infrastructures, money, culture, military, and health. Yes, the second one, the blue one. And so you get each time one proposal for each category, but you don't have an exact decision on what building will be shown. And this way, we believe you still have a significant decision and input into what will be built in a region, but you don't have a perfect choice each time. You don't get stuck in a rut, always building the same things at the same time in all regions. And we believe it combines the best of two worlds. Also, last note, the buildings, we said you have 300 buildings, but you won't be overwhelmed by a large quantity of building at the start. It will be shown to you progressively, and it's split in layers, so you will always get new buildings to play with and discover as you initiate new games. And Last point, buildings also provide trade goods or demand trade goods, and Ian will talk a bit more about them.
So yes, trade's a really important part of the whole kind of economic model. So your regions, most regions will produce at least one trade good, sometimes more. And these provide a small bonus to the territory that they're located in. So, for example, if you've got wheat in your territory, that will give a food bonus to the territory that produces it. But more importantly, the trade goods obviously are there for trade, and that's where the real benefit from them comes. So these goods will be traded to buildings that demand them, and these buildings can be in different regions. And so if you build take the example of the forge is a good example.
Thomas, can you?
The forge is a building that produces 5 metal, and here you can see that it also has 3 bonus resources. One is lead, one is tin, and one is coal. Each of the bonus resources gives you an extra 4 metal. So you go from being able to produce 5 metal to potentially up to 17 metal if you can get these bonus resources into this structure. And in the example there, we had one of them, so we were producing 9 metal. So it almost doubled the production of the building just by having access to one trade good. So there's that bonus there in the resource production, and that's where the demand comes from as well. So it's these buildings that generate the demand that is then supplied from the regions that produce them. On top of that, the region that is supplying them gets paid for providing them. So you get a monetary bonus to the region where the trade good is being sold from. What we're going to do now is we're going to have a quick break, and we'll come back to the game in a moment. So we're talking about trade. We're here today. We're at this World Heritage Site, the Brixia Capitolium. We're talking about Empires, the brand new grand strategy game from AGOD. And we're in the middle of telling you a bit about trade. So the trade system generates money for the region that exports it, but it also gives bonuses to the region that imports it. And the way that you expand your trade networks is by developing your empire. So a small barbarian nation will have a very limited range, whereas an empire, once you move through different government types up to an empire, you have a much larger trade range. And that affects which regions you can send your trade goods to. You can also expand your trade range by improving your transport networks. So by building roads, by building ports, developing your network, that extends the range of resources that can be transported. And that can have a huge difference on your economy. This all might sound quite complicated, but the only things the player has to worry about are actually deciding where to build roads and where to build buildings. Everything else is managed by the AI. You don't have to worry about actually buying and selling these goods individually. It's all handled automatically. So you have some interesting decisions. So we think this gives a real depth to the game without having lots of complexity. It also gives a lot of interesting decisions when deciding what structures to build. And linked with the mechanic that Pocus was talking about, where buildings are not completely free, you have to pick from a set of options. It forces you to come up with different ideas each time. So it's getting across that idea of giving the player interesting decisions to make, and always different ones, rather than just making the same perfect decision and then just churning that idea again and again. So that gives an overview of how the trade system works. What we're going to do now is have a bit of a look about how the war economy works. So Pocus, can you tell us about that?
Yes, so the initial situation for Rome is the standing army of Rome is a 90 points army. As you can see, it is made of 3 legions and 2 allied legions, which are allied legion. Also, we have some support troops, namely the Velite, which are skirmishers for Rome, and also some cavalry. And what you see, the Senones are a bit north with a strength of 69. So for our test, it's a bit close, and it will not be prudent to attack them right now. So we will recruit a few troops. But before that, some detail on the combat system. It works in part as a rock paper scissors system, and we made sure that no unit is the ultimate unit able to fight and win each time. On the contrary, even the best, or seemingly best, and at least the most costly units, like the heavy infantry or the legion, are not good in all terrain. So each time you are in a war, you will have to consider what is the enemy composition, what are the terrain you will fight on, and what will be your generals, what is the general on the other side, if you have enough support units. It's not a given, and we believe it will provide you a lot of interesting choices and decisions to make to form up your army for the task. So now that we made this small summary, we will probably recruit 2 extra legion in Rome, and we are accessing the build interface. You see that Rome has a few units as a choice, and we will order 2 legion, and we can do that in Rome in the initial turn, because Rome starts with a huge and stockpiles of equipment. It's a resource that can be stored, and Rome has some benefits on it as a custom trait. And that done, the next turn we will have our 2 extra legion. Another point to make is that the game is a turn-based game, but it's a we go system, meaning we all go together. It means, for example, that if Tamas is planning an order, he is only planning it. It is not executing the order. So he can edit his order, cancel it, move differently. There is no issue with that. And only when he clicks on end turn, all the orders of all the nations, including the AI, will proceed to the next turn. So that being said, now we can click end turn if we are happy with the situation. And you see the execution of the turn, and then.
So that, yeah, you saw some of the units moving there that the AI was controlling, and now we've been taking into the end turn report, and it's quite a lot of information here, so we're just going to dig into this a little bit to give an idea of what's going on. So on the left of the screen you have the culture decadence table. So this is something that's calculated. It's called the CDR, the culture decadence ratio. Culture basically divided by decadence. So the higher your culture and the lower your decadence, the better this value will be. And what we do is we rank all nations in the game by their CDR. And you can see here, scrolling through the table, there's 64 nations in this excuse me, in this scenario. And what we do is we take the nations in the top third of the table, and these nations are counted as progressing. They're doing well. They're the ones that are marked in green at the moment on the screen. When you're in the top third of the table, you have a chance of earning a progress token. These are really important because they help your government type to develop and help your nation to develop into new and improved government types. The middle third of the table will be neutral. They'll not go up, they'll not go down, they're safe, but they're not really changing. The bottom third of the table is where you don't want to be. In the bottom third of the table, this kind of orange colour, I'm not sure what name to describe that colour.
Salmon?
Yes, salmon, that's a good colour. These guys are earning aging tokens. So the black tokens there are aging tokens, the white tokens are progress. Some of the nations at the bottom have earned a progress token. That's because they've done some kind of special achievement. They maybe have captured a victory location that gives them an extra progress token. But in general, they're going to be earning these aging tokens, and their government will regress. Once you earn 5 progress tokens or 5 aging tokens, your government will either improve or get worse. And it's the phone bleeping. It might be my phone. Hopefully not. So the progress tokens help your government to evolve to a better type. So a young government might evolve to a stable one, or a stable one might evolve to a glorious one. And if you're regressing, you're aging and decaying, you will go from maybe a stable to a decadent empire. And these different types of empire are really important to how you score points. Legacy points are earned much quicker by glorious empires than they are by decadent ones. And so it's very important to get your empire into the right state and manage your culture and your decadence to make the most of things. And then on the right you have, so one more thing to say about the culture and decadence is that there's an aging mechanic. So every turn your government type is aging, and this aging makes it harder to keep your population happy and to fight decadence. And the only way to deal with this is to increase your culture every turn to deal with that, or to reset the age of your empire. And you can reset the age of your empire by transitioning it into a different type. So there's a couple of mechanics you can use to avoid your empire aging. But if you can't, the aging it's one of the ways we capture the rise and fall of empires, and it sets them through different phases of their of the game, really. On the right side of the screen we have legacy points, and these are, as we said earlier, this is how you score and how you win the game. So it's not too important in the early game to get that many legacy points, but you've got to make sure you don't fall too far behind, and that you set yourself up to really earn legacy points in the mid to late game. So the game spans 500 years of history. Poker's mentioned it starts in 310 BC and it goes all the way through to 190 AD. And that's 250 turns at 2 years per turn. So it's a big game, it's a big period of history, and there's many hours of enjoyment to be had. So that gives you an idea of how that works. We're going to have a quick break, and after the break we're going to come back and tell you a bit about the nation panel. Hi guys, welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're here today to talk about Empires, the brand new grand strategy game from Agiod, and we're at this awesome UNESCO World Heritage site, the Brixia Capitolium. So what we're going to be looking at next is the nation panel. So Pocus, tell us about the nation panel.
Yes, the nation panel shows the high-level information of your nation, and as you can see to the left, you get the government type of your nation and its status from young to decadent. To the right, you get the ruler or political party of your nation. So for Rome, currently, as we are not yet in empire, we are in republic, you get a political party. You also get some information, but we won't dig too much into that on culture, decadence and legacy. And you get also the age of the government. The older it is, the more difficult it will be to stay at the top of CDR ranking, as Ian said. And finally, you get several other information, including the specific traits of your nation. For example, the Roman nation has the cursus honorum trait. It provides extra leaders, and it's a bit easier for them to convert people to their ethnicity, the Romanization Ian was talking about. So this will be all for the region, the national panel right now, and we will now get back to our army and check if we have our 2 extra legions. As you can see, we have now 5 legions, and the army is much stronger. We also made sure that the leader of the army was decent, and he is even good, because as you see, it's a very good leader. He has a 2 in attack, which is the maximum value in attack. And so it means we are probably ready to take the fight to the Senones. So Tamas will be prudent because he is Tamas, and he will move only 1 region to the boundary, and the next turn we will jump onto the Senones if they did not do any trick. So please, Tamas, if you can click on end turn if you are done with your movement, and we will go to the second turn. Third, even.
So there again you saw that the turn being resolved, all of the different nations' orders were executed simultaneously. And we're back to the end turn resolution screen. You can see, as Rome, we're still sitting right at the bottom of the table, 59th there out of 64. And we have an aging token, one of those black tokens, which isn't good. So what we need to do is try and sort that out. We need to do something about our culture to try and improve things there. So Tamas is going to take us into the region panel and have a look at the worker allocation. So we don't have really anything producing culture at the moment, so we're going to move some workers across to start producing some culture. And by starting to produce culture points, we will push up our culture value. That means our CDR, culture decadence ratio, will increase, and that will push us up that ranking table so that hopefully we get out of that bottom third. So we've moved some workers across, and you can see that different workers produce different amounts of resources. So we have 2 types of workers. You have citizens and you have slaves. Citizens are your native-born people, and slaves are obviously the ones that have been captured in war or some other way. Citizens can do any job, whereas slaves really are only much use for food and infrastructure production. They produce very little commerce or culture. So you've got to make sure you have the right kind of worker in the right job. So we're allocating some extra workers to culture to help with our CDR, but we're also going to go and build a couple of culture buildings to help with that in the longer term as well. So Tamas has just gone to a couple of territories, moved some workers across, and we'll have a look later to see if that's made much difference to our CDR, but we've probably at least doubled our culture points this turn, so hopefully that should get us up the rankings a fair bit. So, enough of culture. Let's see this battle.
Yeah, so Tamas will now move again the Senones directly into their capital region, and we will simply enter, and hopefully they will not have moved away, and we will get our battle at last. Let's see. Yeah. So we are now in a fight with the Senones. We will now go to the detailed battle system, and as you can see, it's not abstract at all. We have our two armies facing each other. At the top of the screen you get the Senones with an assortment of Celtic units like war chariot, some warriors, a few heavy infantry and some cavalry. Now at the bottom you see our Roman army made of legion, very good unit in a plane, and it's good we are in plane. Allied legion, so allied legion, some velite, cavalry, and what you see is that some of the velite are in the front because they are skirmisher, but they will fall back after we have done the range phase. So we will now proceed to the range phase, and you will see some exchange of blow, exactly. So we have, because of all the units that can fire on our side, we have tired a bit of Celtic units. And we will go slowly now because the melee phase is a bit involved, and it's not just piling up a number against a number, and it's made in a series of duels. Like you see, there is a legion with a total end total of 14 against a war chariot with an end total of 13. And our legion, because our leader is very good, he has 2 in attack rating, can throw 3 dice, whereas the only dice allowed to the Celtic is what he will keep.
Tamas, can you just put the cursor over the combat values so it's clearer what's going on there? So you can see there's a 4 just underneath the cursor, which is the base value for the war chariot, and an 8, which is the base combat value for the legion, those 2 big numbers in the middle. And then to the right of those you have some dice rolls, and that's the randomized part. And so because the Celtic leader is only gets 1 dice, whereas our leader gets 3 dice. So they rolled a 9, so 9 plus 4 is 13, and ours is, we've rolled 3 dice, a 4, a 6 and a 6, because we get to pick the highest number. We end up on a 14.
Not great either. Perhaps another duel.
It still wins, and the leader there has made the difference.
Yes,
without
exactly.
the leader.
Here it's much more deadly for the opponent, because as you see the legion managed to get to 16 because we have a choice of 3 dice. Can you over the 10, Tamas? Back 1 step please. Again, please. 1 step back, please.
So with the battles, you can actually go forwards and backwards through them and view it again. So see it as many times as you like.
Okay, another duel. Perfect. Okay, we are again with our 10, the maximum dice, and the 6 of the Legion we go to 16, whereas the only dice a Celtic can do is a 6 plus 5 equal 11. So we do a lot of damage to the Celtic unit. And it will proceed like that for all the duel, and we can go to continuous play if you want.
And the bigger the difference, the more damage is inflicted.
Exactly,
so you can see there, that one was a slaughter and we annihilated that unit, and that one.
When there is a big difference, it can mean the death of the enemy unit. And if we manage to win because we inflict more losses, we will get into the pursue phase and inflict even more unit to the defeated.
Oh, we lost some cavalry.
Yeah. The Roman cavalry is not that great, in fact.
And some velites.
Oh, and a draw.
Oh well.
It's okay.
Last time we tried that, we won.
Yeah, let's see. Still, we should win the next time.
So, what we're going to...
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
It's an interesting part because there will be another battle in the turn, and perhaps some of your units might even join the battle because the turn advance in time. So we will redo another battle here. You can click.
What we're going to do is going to have a quick break, and we'll come back to you and we'll tell you a bit more about the battles after that.
Yeah, there is something.
Hi guys, welcome back. We're here today to talk about Empires, the brand new grand strategy game from Agiod, and we're here at this wonderful UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Brixia Capitolium. So we're coming to you live, and if you were watching before, you just saw us fight a battle against the Senones. It ended in a draw, and we don't think that's good enough, so what we're going to do is we're going to fight that battle again. Because it's a draw, the battle continues on to a second day. But this time we're going to do something a little bit different. So, we've been referring to the game all through the stream as Empires, but the official name of the game is Field of Glory Empires. So, if you're familiar with the name Field of Glory, we have a series of games, battle games called Field of Glory that cover the ancient world, and they're very popular battle games for resolving, ancient battles. Anyway. It's not just a cosmetic tie-in. If you're familiar with Field of Glory, then you'll notice that the banners and the units are the same in the game here as they are in Field of Glory 2. And like I said, it's not just a cosmetic tie-in, it's far more than that. So what you can see on screen there, Tamas has got the cursor over something called the Export Battle button. So we're going to click that, and we're going to go through the process, and what you'll notice is Tamas is going to switch to Field of Glory 2. What you can do is you can export your game, your battle, from Field of Glory Empires into the format of Field of Glory 2, and you can fight the battle out in Field of Glory 2, and then the results come back into Field of Glory Empires. And so you get two really awesome, great strategy games combining together to make a really unique experience, and we think that's an awesome feature. So the units we were seeing there on Field of Glory Empires are imported in. We have our legions. You can zoom in there and see the legion. That's the legion that we were seeing, those 5 legions we were seeing in the in Field of Glory Empires. We have the velites out the front. We have some supporting light cavalry. We have the Alia in reserve, the Alia legions. We no longer have any heavy cavalry because they all died in the last battle. But it all comes across. They come across with their experience. Excuse me. The right equipment, and up there you have the remains of the Celtic army after the first day's fighting, and we're resolving it now inside Field of Glory, so we think this is an awesome feature. Oh, the other thing is your generals come across as well, so you've got Glaucia,
yeah.
And the Celtic general, I forget what his name was.
Oescus, he's a no-name for what?
But yeah, everything comes across, so you can see it inside the game. We're not going to resolve the battle now because it would take too long to resolve the battle in Field of Glory. So we're going to switch back to Field of Glory Empires, and we're going to look at the province system.
This time we won. Yes, the provinces are rather important also because...
oh, sorry, before you go on.
Go ahead.
Just noticing that Rome's jumped up to position 28 in the CDR rating.
Yeah.
So that work we did previous turn to boost our culture has helped, and we're no longer in the danger zone and no longer earning aging tokens. So that's good news. Sorry, Pocus, over to you.
Yeah. The province... Some empires at the start are rather big, like Seleucid or even Egypt, and hopefully if you manage successfully your nation, you will also grow and get a region by the dozens, perhaps even. And so we felt it was necessary you get another tool to manage a big empire, and we made the province feature into play. The provinces are defined first by a preset province boundary, like for example you see Osroene or Atropine or Arcadia.
So you're showing us the province overlay now. So these aren't nations, these are now the provinces.
Exactly, yes. And the province boundary, if you manage to grab at least half of them, a bit more than half in fact, you can form a province with such a region. And so the Seleucid, being very big, start with half a dozen provinces already. Each province can be handled through a single panel, the province panel, and as you can see in the Adiabene province, we get a summary of the population and the resources output. Also, you see we have two sets of buttons. To the left, we have buttons dealing with population management. So you can focus the population in one click on a job, for example, or asking the AI governor to balance the output. And you can also change how the buildings are determined. You can, for example, focus on agricultural buildings or military buildings, or if you don't want to handle to let that handled by the governor, you can remain on manual with that. It's an important point for us. You can always keep full control on all your region, even if they are formed into a province. The province, what's more, provide extra benefits. It shares the food between the region, so it helps the weaker region benefit from the stronger nation. And if you acquire a new region within the province, it will be boosted by the old region within the province. The infrastructure, the same thing. This way you can help a young region develop faster buildings. And last, we have one special unit per province, custom to the province, and it will be a nice complement most of the time for your nation. For example, the Seleucid, if they manage to grab Armenia, will be able to produce cataphracts. If Rome managed to conquer Carthage, it will be able to produce elephants. And the list go on with more than 70 special units for each province of the game. So we believe it's a simple system, yet a powerful one, and always you keep the choice of micromanaging if you like that, if you want final control of each of your region. And that's it for the province. We will now speak of national traits. Ian, if you want to chime in.
Yeah, so if you're just joining us, welcome guys. We are here today to talk about Empires, Field of Glory Empires we can say now, the brand new strategy game from Agiod. We've been showing a range of features. We're going to move on to the nation traits now. So one of the things we wanted to do was make sure that each nation felt a bit different. So we've tried to capture this in a number of ways. So the nations will have their own specific traits. So for example, Rome might have better generals and more of them. The Seleucids, one of the Alexander's successor states, they have something called Alexander Heritage, and that gives them a bonus in keeping their diverse populations happy. So you have a range of traits specific to your nation. You also have a range of traits specific to your leader. So we can see here we have the traits aren't necessarily all good things as well. So we've got a poor diplomat here, which gives us a penalty of reduction of 10%. Okay, so he's not as good at getting treated.
He will get into war even if he don't want.
And so he's got a poor diplomat and missionary. So you have the traits of your leader, the traits of your nation, and the traits of your government type. So these three things layer together to give you a unique set of bonuses, and that'll be different every time you play because you'll have different government types and different leaders. And so that's one of the things that really will vary the game every time you play through. In addition to that, each of the factions has, as mentioned already, your own units. So, Focus, how many different unit types do we have across the game?
We have 450 units type across the game if you count all the custom units for the nation.
Quite a lot then. Yeah. So there's a huge variety of units to try and capture the flavour of the period. And we also have faction-specific buildings, some of which you saw at the start. So Rome starts with a few faction-specific buildings that only they can have, and the Seleucids have something similar. We've got the Satrap Palace here. This is a building that lets you field a larger army,
but it's very costly.
Yeah, it uses up a lot of money.
We try often to have buildings which are not pure crap or always all good. We try to balance them with a benefit and a drawback, and you will have to is it good enough that I keep it? Is it not good enough and I will scrap it? You will have tough decision each time, because as Ian said, the Satrap Palace provide a boost to your existing army size, so it's good, you can maintain a big army, but it costs a lot, so you will have to see how it fits your plan.
And so on top of that, you've got your nation traits, your units, your buildings. There are nation-specific events as well. So, for example, the Seleucids have a range of events linked to them, and so linked to all the successor states, where the regions can transfer from one of the successor states to another without war. The regions just declare for the other leader, because there was a lot of infighting, a lot of squabbling, and a lot of backstabbing and diplomacy going on in this period. And so, with these large successor states, you do have a powerful nation, but you've got a lot of other things going on under the hood that you have to deal with. So they're not just a superpower. You've got pros and cons of having that large empire. So that gives an idea of some of the traits that we've got at the moment, and we're going to be adding more of those kind of events and traits as we go through the beta stage and probably beyond, because the period of history is so rich. There's just almost an infinite number of things that you can do like this. And the engine is also very, very moddable. So there'll be script files that users can get into and do all sorts of stuff. It's a really very mod-friendly game, very open.
You can even change the game rules if you want.
Yeah, you can modify anything you like, really. Your imagination is your limit, really, when it comes to that.
Exactly.
So the next thing we wanted to talk a bit about was multiplayer.
Yes, multiplayer. Multiplayer is quite interesting and good, and with single friends or two, it's easy to set up. But we all know that it will be difficult for most of us to keep 16 players at the same time playing the same game for long. So because we are in a turn-based WIGO system where all players can input their turn at any time and then click on end turn, we have a very interesting system where you can play on your time in the evening, offline, and when you are ready you will send your turn to the Slytherin server, and after a certain schedule the turn will be processed and everybody will get his new turn. So we believe for people with a busy life, as many of us, it's great because you can at last get a 16 players game running and running fine for a lot of turns and days. So we believe it has a lot of potential. We are still in the testing phase for the 16 players module, but as we are still not in beta, we will get that sorted, verified.
For our other games where we introduced the play-by-email system, we found an increase in between 100 to 1,000 times as many games going on as we had before, when you just had to direct connection. So having this ability to play offline in your own time and not have to get 16 people together at the same time, it just takes it to a different level. It makes it so much easier to organize and manage in these long-term big games going on. We think this is a really cool feature.
Yeah, it should prove popular.
So if you're just joining us today, we are talking about Field of Glory Empires, the brand new grand strategy game from Agiod, and we're here at this wonderful UNESCO World Heritage Site, the Brixia Capitolium. We've given you an overview of the game. We're just going to do a quick recap of the features for people that missed it. So, Field of Glory Empires is a grand strategy game. It's set during the ancient Roman period of history, which is really open. It's before the Roman Empire really got established, so there's lots of potential candidates for emerging victorious. The map's made up of 1,000 regions. There are 60 playable nations and hundreds of non-playable minor factions and tribes and kingdoms. It's a really ambitious game design. We're pulling together lots of threads that have been touched on in other games. We're putting them together in a really unique way and adding some completely new concepts. And we've got the legacy system, we've got the culture, decadence, aging, government types, all these things tying together to give a real feel of rise and fall of empires, which it doesn't really capture often in strategy games of this type. We've got a great inbuilt battle system, which is more advanced than pretty much any other grand strategy game out there. But we also have the option to export your battles to take them to Field of Glory 2, which is a really, really cool feature. So you get the best really specialized grand strategy game with one of the best specialized battle games bolted together for a really unique experience. We have our province system, which helps make managing larger empires much more manageable. We've got the trade system, which is really unique and adds real depth. And we've got the nation traits, which make each nation feel a bit different and add lots of replay value. We've got the events.
National decision also?
Yep, national decisions. Haven't really even looked at those at all today.
No time for that.
We've got the multiplayer system, which we think is really cool. And so that gives you a really quick overview. We'd be happy to hear any questions you guys have got. What we're going to do is we're going to go into a Q&A session in a couple of minutes. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll get back to you. Hi guys, welcome back. We're here today to talk about Field of Glory Empires, the brand new grand strategy game from AJOD. If you're just joining us, then you're a bit late, but you're just in time to hear some of the questions. So we're going to move on to a Q&A session now. We're going to be here for some time, so if you've got more questions, please do keep asking them in the stream, and we'll answer as many of them as we can. So the first question we have in is, do I need Field of Glory 2 to play Field of Glory Empires? Focus.
Not at all. You can absolutely play the game. It's a standalone game, and if you don't need to, you can play the game alone with a detailed battle system, which is quite interesting and involved already. So there is.
I would go as far as very interesting.
Yeah, true. It's a unique system because, as we said before, but perhaps it's a system where you don't pile up single numbers 3 times because you have a good unit, a good leader, and in the right terrain. It's much more subtle than that. And when you analyze your situation, you will see you will need to take into account the terrain, the generals, the army composition. If you have enough support unit, because you don't want to get flanked in a large battle. And the supply situation, or the effectiveness and experience of the army.
We've got another battle happening here where you can see that the front line is much more restricted.
Yes, it's a march battle.
The different types of terrain affect how wide your front line can be, and so that determines how important it is to have units like ranged units to support versus cavalry to extend the line. And so different army compositions for different battlefields is really important. You can't just set a super stack that will go around and beat everything.
There is a limit number of units that will fight in a given battle, so yes, piling up on a unit is usually not the best decision. And so back to the original question, the battle system is subtle and detailed enough that you don't have to play the battle in a field of glory too, but you can if you want, and for various reasons, if you want to win a difficult fight, or if you just enjoy the period and want to have a battle generator, you can do that.
So that was the first question. So we've got a page of questions here. Next question is, will we see expansions set during the Middle Ages? Well, it's a little bit early to say exactly what's going to happen next, but what we will say at this point is that we have developed an engine here. This isn't a single game. This has taken, God, how long have we taken to produce this focus?
Almost 3 years.
Yeah, it's a 3-year task to produce a brand new engine, and this is resetting everything for AGOD. So this is a new engine for AGOD to build their games on. And if you know about the AGOD's history, then you know that they've been to different parts of history, and they make once they've got a core engine that works, they'll take it to different areas. So we definitely do plan to take this somewhere else next, but we don't exactly where yet. And also we think there's a lot of life in Field of Glory Empires as a game, so we're going to be working on this for some time, and probably working on that alongside any future game that we come up with. So next question: how different are the factions, Pocus?
Most, if not all, of the major factions are quite different to play with, and it's not just about the unique units or the special buildings. Even if it's an important part of the specificity. For example, as Thomas is showing, Rome has some very specific buildings, and if we were to go to Carthage, we will see also specific buildings. But it's more than that. For example, if you get the cotton, for example. It's the special harbor for Carthage, which combine both a shipyard and a protected harbor. So it's a great asset because it do 2 things at once. But it's going more further than that, because, for example, if we get to Sparta has a very good heavy infantry unit, a phalanx, and it plays differently because, as many of you probably know, the Spartan citizens were few because of systems, the political systems they had in place. So it means that they never had enough manpower for their army, and it will be very difficult for them to have a large army, except they can fill up. Thank you, extra Christian, perfect. And so the Spartan phalanx will be very few. So when you play Sparta, you have powerful units, but you will have a few of them because of the political systems they have. If you play another nation, like for example, I don't know, Antigonos, the orange nation in Asia Minor, it's one of the Diadochi. Antigonos had to fight for his survival and was always at war with other Diadochi. So he has a special mechanism where he is always in need of fighting the other Diadochis, and if he don't do that, it will regress rapidly. So every nation you can play with have a special mechanism, and it goes beyond extra units and buildings.
Cool. Right, move on to the next question. Just trying not to shiver. We're slightly chilly here right now. It's 2 degrees, and there's not really
excitation.
Yes, it is an indoor location, but only just.
Yes.
The next question is, how moddable will the game be? So we touched on it briefly in the presentation, but
I can talk about it.
Yeah.
Usually, when we think about modding, we think about altering the units or changing the buildings or even adding new nation. And it's true, you can do that rather easily in Empires, I would say, as in many games. So it's easy to mod as everybody believe it should be. But it goes also again further than that, because you can edit and change the game rules or add new ones. For example, if you are into that and want to spend a bit of time into the script, you can, for example, create, I don't know, catapult units that will do area of effect damage on the battlefield. You can do that in this game. or I don't know, you can create new units that will be able to move over the sea easily and very rapidly without any side effect. There are a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, your imagination is basically the limit.
Yes,
The entire game system is exposed to you, so all of the way the siege system works, the trade system works, the combat system works, all of those values are just in, it's a C-type script, and so if you understand scripting at all, you can get in there and you can change anything, and so we're expecting a lot of mods to appear, doing all sorts of things. You could even mod it to change it to settings yourself, so if we don't do that medieval game for you, you go in there and you just make the medieval game yourself.
It's possible, indeed.
So yeah, it's very very open, and it's something we really support. We try and make it as easy as possible for modders to get in there and do things. So next question is how the multiplayer will work and how many players can it handle. So the way the multiplayer system works is that it's hosted through our servers. So you log in to the multiplayer system and you will create a challenge and you'll say how many players you want, and then the other players will see those challenges appear. They don't even have to be online at the same time as you. They can accept the challenge and join the game, and once enough players have joined the game will kick off, and then the server will send the turn out to everybody. And again, you don't have to be online at the same time as any of the other players. You get to see all of their moves because the game's resolved in a turn-based WeGo way. It just shares the orders out between all players, and then when you set your new turn's orders, you send them to the server, and then it gets shared out to everyone again. And so you never have to be online at the same time as your opponents. Which means that you can go from playing a 2-player game up to a 16-player game without any extra real effort. We haven't quite worked out exactly what's going to happen yet when somebody doesn't enter their turn in time. So there'll probably be two ways to play. These are the kind of things we're still working the details out on. If someone doesn't enter their orders, what do we do? You can either have it that there's a time, so you say you have 24 hours or 3 days or a week to enter your orders, and if you haven't entered your orders by then, the turn will just tick over. Or it could be that the game just waits. It waits until everyone's entered their orders. That'll be some kind of option that you can set up. So if it's a more friendly game against people you know, you probably set it up that you'll wait for them to move, whereas if it's a more open game against people you don't necessarily know that well, you'll probably have it that the turns tick over. And when they start ticking over, the AI will probably take control of the nations that aren't being played. So it's not that the game will stop for that player when they're not there. The AI will take over and try and take turns for them. Or the player might decide to say, I don't want the AI taking over. I want to do nothing until I'm back, because I know I'm going to wait for 2 weeks, and I don't want the AI to start spending resources on things I didn't want to spend them on. So hopefully that gives a good overview of how the multiplayer system will work, and the plan is to support up to 16 players. We haven't fully tested it yet, so we'll have to see how it goes. If that doesn't work, we might come down to 8. If it works really well, who knows, we might even try higher, but that's all to be decided in the beta test. Next question from Richard York. What are the playable nations when released, and will there be DLC for extra factions?
It's a tough one because we are still not in beta, so not everything is decided and fixed. Currently we are 20 playable nations with custom content, and we will try to get the most of them playable and with custom content by the end of...
So there are 60 nations you can play.
Yeah.
At the moment, in the version we have now, 20 have all customized content, and the other 40 we're going to try and get all done through the beta stage.
Exactly, yes.
But there's definitely opportunity to add more nations to that, because the map has only 60 of the regions have got playable nations in them. So there is room to add more. How many we add will probably depend partly on turn processing times. So if we wanted to make every nation playable, it could be done, but the AI turns will take a long time to resolve, so it becomes a balance between how long we want turns to resolve and how many nations we want playable. But how we do DLC is something that we're still working out. It might be that we provide different settings, so rather than just throwing more nations into this, we might give a different scenario. So instead of being 310 BC Rome, it might be, I don't know, ancient Assyria or something, who knows.
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great, yes. We maybe take the time period back and set it before Alexander had conquered the empire. But yeah, there's lots of options there, and we definitely would be interested in hearing players' thoughts on that and where they would like to see things go. The next question we have is from Stoic Frog. How customizable are the nations in game? I.e., if I wanted to change the starting parameters of my state, do I have options? So I think Stoic Frog's talking about inside the game rather than modding. So how much control do you have over your nation?
Then in this case it will join up a bit with the further question about military unit upgrade. Probably.
So let me just read the next question then.
Yeah.
So the next question is, can you upgrade your units as time passes, or are the military units pretty much static for most of the game?
Some of the units in each nation can be upgraded to superior unit, slightly superior unit, if you manage to trigger the national decision about it. And national decision generally have some condition. And some nation also push that further. For example, Rome, it's the best example to speak about. It starts with early Republic Legion, and then through a decision, the Marian reform, it will go to the Marian Legion. And when you switch Rome from Republic to Empire, you will switch to Imperial Legion, but it won't be automatic. You will first have to switch to Empire, and then get your national decision about the upgrade of the Legion, and then decide through a multi-choice event what is the way you will take to upgrade the Imperial Legion. If you are rich and in a hurry, you will perhaps ask for an immediate upgrade of the Legion. If you are not in a hurry or poor or want to do things better, because the Legion will keep more of experience, you will ask for a slow and steady upgrade of all the Legion across the map. So that's an example for Rome. Rome is it's the blessed child of the gameplay, because Rome also gets the Corvus decision, where Rome is initially with quite average ships, and then through national decision we'll get the Corvus, which it's like a crane with a big spike, and it will how you say, put the ship, two ships in together.
Boarding,
exactly. And this decision will improve the ships of Rome significantly. And so it goes on for other units in other nations, and you are not definitively stuck in a single type of unit for all the game.
To go back to Stoic Frog's question about the how customizable is the nation, there are three parts to the nation. So you have your fixed nation traits. So, for example, we were looking at Seleucid, and the fixed parts of the nation were the things like Alexander heritage. I forget, there are a couple of other traits in there as well. So that part is fixed, and the Seleucids would always have that. The other two parts were the government and the leader, and those parts are both flexible. And so the government part you have control over by determining which way your government develops, and the leader part will depend, that's more random, you can't really control that. So a lot of the nation traits will be things you have to deal with. You can't really control them that well. It's more about dealing with the hand you're given and making the best of it and working out the way to play it. So there are certain things you can do, but it's mostly about just finding the best way to make use of the traits you've been given there. So the next question, for those of us who haven't played Field of Glory 2, what are some of the benefits to combat that make you excited for this integration? So Field of Glory 2 is, to me, it's the best strategy game set in the ancient period. It started out as a tabletop game that we designed with Richard Bodley Scott, who was the original designer of a set of tabletop rules called DBM, and he also worked with Phil Barker. If you know anything about tabletop wargaming, Phil Barker and Richard Bodley Scott are two of the biggest guys in tabletop rules game design. So we worked with Richard to design the Field of Glory tabletop rules, and then after that we worked on a computer version, Field of Glory, and then Richard became involved in the second version, and Richard pretty much completely developed on his own Field of Glory 2. So Richard Bodley Scott was the original designer the tabletop system, and he's the designer and developer of Field of Glory 2, and it is a really, really good system. It's very, very historically accurate. It really models ancient warfare very, very well, and to be honest, there is nothing that beats it in modeling ancient warfare. And that, combined with the flavour and the detail that we've got in Field of Glory Empires, means you've got a really unique combination. If you're into the history and accuracy and detail, then there isn't really a better way to go. So hopefully that answers that one. Next question, Focus. Will the game require a powerful PC to run?
No, not at all. We did some try, and even a low-end laptop can run it. As you saw, the AI turn is quite fast, like 10 seconds on most computers, so it will be a nice change of pace for most of the Agiot players who had to wait for 1 minute or two. And the resolution can be as low as 1366 wide, so it's the resolution of the modest laptop on the market. So there won't be any issue, and you don't need definitively a very powerful computer to run it.
This is one of the things that we're very careful to do. Is our games, wherever possible, we make them as low spec as possible, because we know that a lot of the people that like these kind of games like to play on laptops or business trips or whatever. They don't want to be tied to a very high powered desktop machine. So we really do put a lot of effort into making sure these games run on lower spec machines, and so we have a lot of graphical settings you can play with so that the 3D part doesn't become too demanding, and then the part that's done on the processor is easily manageable on any normal laptop. So the next question is from Eurogamer. It's a couple of questions. So, will it be possible to start in a different era, and how many different scenarios are there? So on the scenarios, the game is very much a sandbox. So we don't really create scenarios. We haven't done lots of different start dates where there's different problems to solve. We've created much more of a sandbox game with a single start date. The idea of adding more scenarios and start dates and settings is something that we could definitely do, but that isn't something we're going to do in the initial version. I don't know, is there a plan to put in a smaller tutorial scenario to get
there will be the Pirates scenario, which is a very small scenario on a Pirates invasion of Italy against Rome, and it will also be used as a tutorial for people who want to play the tutorial several times.
The other thing is, as we go through the beta test, we might find that there's demand for different things, so we might end up taking chunks of the map maybe and making specific smaller scenarios if the beta testers are finding that interesting. And it might be that for multiplayer it might be particularly useful to try and do some of those smaller scenarios, because sometimes it's nice to have a more confined area for a multiplayer game.
And as the initial situation is quite interesting with several wars going on, like Italy being at war, Carthage, almost all Diadokis being at war in the east, the Seleucid, Egypt. Yes, we can take a chunk of a map, like 1/4, and make a scenario of it very easily for people who don't want the big thing right from the start.
One question here is there a historical campaign?
It's what you said. It's more like a sandbox game. We have a historical inclination or orientation, like I did explain how Rome will upgrade the Legion, so it's definitively very historically inspired with a Praemarian Legion and then the Imperial Legion, but it's not set in stone like a very strict historical game where it's decided that at this year you will get this historical event. So we have more a system that will lead to, most of the time, historical results, but you won't have the exact years, exact condition each time.
So we've got a sandbox which is set up with historical conditions, and there are events that are historical events that are tied to certain conditions being met, but they don't happen on specific dates.
For example, for the Parthian, the Parthian Empire, which was formed after, which appears near the Seleucid to the north, near Bactria. We did not script exactly the exact historical date of invasion and the strength, estimated strength. We have a kind of invasion system with some parameters giving the strength, approximate strength and area of deployment of the Parthian, and that's it. The game system will generate the invasion in a plausible ways in the right period of time and area, and that's it. The rest is open to game.
So another question, there's two questions here, kind of similar. How will tactical battles be handled in multiplayer? Do that one first. So they'll be handled exactly the same way as they are in single player. So because the game is we go, everybody's entering their orders simultaneously. The turns all get uploaded, and then when you download, when you view the battle, you're viewing the results. You can't interact with the battle at that point.
Yes.
You're not making decisions about what to attack.
This was perhaps not too clear in our presentation. You don't interact in the battle. It's already
yeah, your decisions have all been made already.
Yes, exactly.
So you've designed the army, you've composed it, you've chosen the terrain you're going to fight on. From that point on, it's the general that deals with the actual fighting on the battlefield. So because there is no input from the player, there is no issue with resolving the battles in multiplayer. It just works. So yeah, multiplayer will work exactly the same battles. And
you can replay the turns as many times as you want, including checking the battle of the current turn and the previous turns also.
So the next question was, can you export battle results played in Field of Glory back into Empires? I think I understand the question. So you're playing a turn in Field of Glory Empires, you export a file to Field of Glory 2, you fight the battle out in Field of Glory 2, and the results of that are then taken back into Field of Glory Empires. Yes, absolutely, that's the whole point of the system. It's not just to generate a Field of Glory battle, it's to have the two games properly connected so you can bring the results back into Field of Glory Empires. So that's definitely a key part of it. Mm-hmm. So Focus, does the trade system work for the AI the same way as for the player?
Exactly the same, in fact. There is no advantage or bypass for the AI on the trade system. And the trade system, despite it being involved and with a lot of details and possibilities, is still fully automated. So once you have set up your buildings, it will seek trade opportunities to import the resource or export the resource, and that's it. For the player, for the AI, it will be the same. Nothing special, no advantages for one side or another.
Okay, and one other point on the trade system. Trade works in between nations, so you're not just talking about trading within your nation. You can't stop trade happening with your neighbours and your enemies and your competitors. That goes on outside of your control.
Less frequent. You will generally, the system will favor your allies and the neutral nation, but yes, you can still trade with the enemy. It's what's not international trade as in modern days.
So the trade is completely AI controlled, outside of your control, outside of the AI player's control. It's just going on under the hood. It's modelling the way all the trade goods are being sold around by private industry. It's not. There was no national level trade. It was just everything was done by private individuals, and so yeah, you couldn't stop it if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. Okay, next question, we got one from Game Watcher. Will the game be accessible enough to mainstream gamers? So it depends. That's a tricky question to answer, because a mainstream gamer. What do we mean by a mainstream gamer? I mean, this game is clearly, it's a detailed grand strategy game. It's not aimed at everybody. We're not trying to compete with Fortnite or whatever. It's not aimed at a mainstream. It's aimed at a strategy gamer. AGOD's history has always been to deliver really good historically themed games, historical content to those guys interested in that kind of thing. So we're not talking about going head-to-head with Civilization. That's not the kind of games we're going up against. We're going up against the more sandboxy type grand strategy games. So it's going to be a niche. How big that niche is hard to say, and niche isn't necessarily a bad word. some people are scared of using the word niche, but we think that the strategy games is a niche part of the games industry, but it's a really strong, really vibrant niche, and we're not ashamed to say that. So we aren't aiming to target the mainstream games industry, but we are aiming to target the mainstream strategy gamers industry. And to do that, we're going to have some detailed tutorials. None of that's in yet at the moment. We've got a few basic bits and pieces, but we want to do a lot more to make the game more accessible. And the beta test, an important part of the beta test, will be in making sure the game is as accessible as possible. So we know there's a bunch of work to do, but we think we've got the building blocks to be able to do that. So next, is naval combat represented?
Naval combat is in the same way as the land battle, but in sea. So yes, you will get the detailed battle system you saw on land, on sea. Perhaps Tamas will even manage to get us into a naval battle. There are less unit type for ships. You still get a classification of light, medium, and heavy warship, plus some custom units. For example, the Carthaginian has the tetrareme. It's a slightly bigger ship than usual. Overall, Carthaginian have a much better navy because the quality is superior for the crew and how they build the ships. Or the Ptolemaic Egypt will have a cankereme, which is an even bigger ship than the Carthaginian tetrareme, and so on. So you get custom units, and they will fight in somehow the same way as the land unit, with a range phase, which was not that important in the ancient time. It was mostly about ramming and sunking, or managing to crash the oars and the oars of the enemy ships. And yes, so a detailed battle system again.
So we haven't got this tied up with Mare Nostrum yet then?
Not yet. Good point.
Yeah, so Mare Nostrum is a game we do, ancient naval war game. But yeah, we haven't tied that one together yet. That's one step too far. Next question from IGN Greg, although I'm having trouble reading it. Since the unit types are very specific maybe, how quickly will we be able to modify our army appropriately for a fairly difficult war?
If your army is already a recruit, you will have either you have the economy to hire extra units, or you will have to disband the current units. And if it is about the army composition, most, if not all nations, even if they don't have all the unit types available, have a complement that will work together. If it's not enough, you still can rely on several other possibilities, like for example the provincial units. For Rome, for example, you don't have access to archer or very good range units. So if you manage to conquer Sicily or the Balearic Island or even Crete, you can get these extra provincial units, which are good range units, for example. So you can form up and create the army of your liking, and even adapt it against some different opponents. Now there are cases where you will always suffer against some nation, as historically. For example, if you are Rome or almost any other nation with heavy infantry, if you go into Germany, you will suffer against the German because they are very good in the wood, and you will lose legion as historically against them. It will be difficult, and it's on purpose to conquer some region and some provinces because it was historically hard for the conqueror. And if that's not enough, you also get mercenaries. So many nations can hire mercenaries, and you will get national decision to hire the specific tribes or the tribes around your nation. And so as Carthage, you always rely on mercenaries because you have a lot of gold but not that much manpower. So you always rely on mercenaries, but you can also activate specific national decisions that will take into account what you conquer and what are the tribes around your nation, and it will create for you a specific army of tribes from the Gallic tribes which are neighbors to your nation. So still a lot of possibilities to adapt to different opponents.
One of the things, just noticing, just remembering that as you fight the battles, your army, where it gets damaged, it can get tired, and they can gain experience. Mm-hmm. So over time, if you can keep your troops alive and survive enough battles, they will gain experience and improve.
Yeah.
Did you just lose a battle there, Tamas?
Against okay, some revolt.
So that was a revolt kicking off, the loyalty not being managed properly. That's what happens when you do a demo.
Yeah, it's okay. And we try to feed back a lot of things into the gameplay. For example, when you manage to get more experienced unit, it's great, okay, but veterans, they cost more, so it will weigh much more on your treasury. So this is the kind of plausible and semi-historical event and feature that will slow down an empire that is going too fast, too easily, and it will also help backward nation stay a bit afloat.
So next question we have is, will there be a way to predict enemy movements or stop them if they are moving in your direction? So how can you stop an enemy army just walking through your territory?
Usually, if you move against them, the bigger will push the weaker, so you will get into a battle.
So if two armies are walking towards each other, where does the battle occur?
It will occur most of the time in the region of the weaker army. And so you can push back an invading force. Now there are a subtlety about the barbarian, or so-called barbarian. Many tribes can do raids against you without actually attacking your region, and that's really a pain for you because...
So how does raiding work?
Yeah, so you are at war with a barbarian nation, and they border your nation, and these barbarians have a special traits and actual special order where they can order a raid that will be an abstract invasion of the region, and sometimes they will succeed and plunder the region and get some gold. Sometimes they will get repelled and take losses and fatigue and lose some experience.
So how do you defend against raids?
As Rome did, either you invade and punish the barbarians, or you try to secure a deal with them so they start being at war.
Okay. So is there any way to get intelligence on where the enemy armies are moving? It's an interesting idea. Maybe one of the things we could look at, or an advanced feature for later, would be to have some spying mechanism where you could try and get some intelligence on what enemy armies are up to. At the moment, we don't give you any information like that to know where the IO is moving. So you've got to look at the map and use your best judgment to decide where they're going and try and plan on that.
It's not part of you don't detect army from afar, but you can still have a clue about what's happening in the other nation, even if they are far from you.
That's a good point, actually. What we're doing here, the game we're currently running is with Fog of War off, and you can choose to do that, and that gives you a kind of a perfect view of what's happening in the world. But we expect a lot of people will want to play with the Fog of War on, and in that case, you don't get this kind of unlimited visibility.
Yes.
You'll only be able to see the regions that are in range of your units.
Yeah. But even with Fog of War on, the major event of the nation will be seen by you as a report because it's normal that even if you are Rome, you happen to know that civil war erupted in the Seleucid Empire some 4,000 kilometers away. So you get a global situation and report about the major events of the nation, and but you don't have spies, so you can't see from afar what's going on the military side of affairs.
Well, unfortunately, guys, that's all we've got time to do today. So thank you very much for watching the streams, the Agiod interview, the Capitolium movie. Everything will be available through our media channels after the event. But we'd just like to thank you very much for coming and watching today, and thank you, the Brixia Capitolium for hosting us. It's a wonderful location, and you should all come and visit it if you get the chance. Thank you very much, guys,
Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Yeah.